Happy Monday, everyone. We're back. Optimistic Struggles. Number 7. Woo. We're already at 7.
7. So, sharp. That's, that rhymes with Devon. Did you know that?
It does. And 11. So will you remind us of that when we get to episode 11?
Yeah, I'll definitely remind you of that one. Just so everyone knows.
All right. Yeah, it's good to know. We can expect that. Devon 7-11.
And heaven.
Very good. What's that?
And heaven.
And heaven. There we go. Yep. We won't get started on what my name rhymes with. I think the viewers would switch this episode off if that was the case. Righto.
Yeah.
Let's jump straight into the deep end. This one is about burn on or burn out. Good topic.
Yep.
Solid. Yeah.
One that really hits home for me.
Yeah. I think it hits home for a lot of people, including myself. So, let's start from the beginning. I guess when you're a kid, like your version of burnout is extremely different from when you're an adult. Hopefully, if you grow and you adapt and you mold yourself and go through a bit of development, then your version of what burning out looks like is quite different. When did you first experience your first burnout?
Not actually quite sure, to be honest. I would say that I probably didn't realize at the time that I was burning out, but I would say it would have been year 12. So I would have been about 16, 17, because I just pushed through training for underwater hockey, under 17s I was in. You were the under 18s. And went to Hobart to play that tournament, and I came back and I just kept trying to push. Like I didn't have a break. Ended up getting glandular fever, and I was out of school for 3 months. But back then it was just like, oh, well, you just got sick. But the reason I got sick was probably because I didn't listen to the cues in my body, and I ended up getting burnt out. Obviously, glandular fever is the old kissing disease, and I was sharing drink bottles with everybody in the team. So somebody probably had glandular fever at that tournament because we all used to share drink bottles because we were super healthy like that.
This was all pre-COVID. It wasn't like on anyone's mind. No one knew what germs were. No one was wearing masks. We could fly overseas very easily. So, just a bit of context for the viewers.
Yeah. And then, I think I kept trying to push, got quite sick. And then I was in bed for like 2 months. Probably should have gone to hospital, but me and my mum were like, we'll be all right. We'll just sleep it off.
She'll be right. The good old Kiwi way. When you get sick, you'll be right. Have a bit of chicken soup.
You don't have that bad a fever. It's only 40.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You'll be all right in the morning.
Yeah. So that'll probably be my first burnout, which I didn't realize was burnout at the time. First one I actually know of as burnout would have been when I came back from it was another underwater hockey tournament, under 23 world champs. Came back, tried to carry on, and then it just got too much for me. And I ended up completely. I left the committee that I was on just like effective immediately. I was like, nah, I can't do this anymore. And I just stepped away from underwater hockey completely and just needed a break from everything. And I was like, I just can't do it. That still to this day plays on my mind that I walked away from something without actually giving anyone any pre-warning. It was just a straight, I'm done. See ya. It's probably one of the...
There seems to be a bit of a theme here, Dev.
Yeah.
World champs and then carry on and then burn out.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those would probably be the two. The one unknown one, and then the definitely knew what had happened. So what about you? What's your first burnout?
My first one. So school burnt me out because I just wasn't interested in the academic side of things. So, so from that point of view, just was a restless kid, and I didn't want to be sat down in a classroom and listen to a teacher day in day out, like teach me like stuff. Education's important, but my brain wasn't wired in that way back then, or it's still not wired that way. I get too restless to listen in school. So it's that I think that was my first experience of burnout. But then like to combat that, and because I had a lot of energy, I got into sport. So like I tried to mitigate it in other ways. But as you say, when you train for any sport, whatever it is, and you put a lot of hours into it, it takes its toll on other areas in your life. So I was falling asleep in school. I had weird sleep cycles. I was a teenager, so I was growing and like adapting, and I needed my rest. So there was probably a component of burnout in there. I don't really remember getting like properly sick, but like other parts of my life, it was to their detriment that I was playing hockey so much or training so much. So I guess that was a form of burnout. And since then, I've had like many times where I've been like burning the wick at both ends, just going hard from when I wake up till when I go back to sleep. There's just been times where you have to like turn on the hustle and just go town on work, so it's not always the healthiest to do that, but I think there is something positive that comes out of those periods. One, like normally you achieve something if you don't crash and burn at the end, and two, you realize what your capacity for work is when you do have downtime. So that if you do need to turn it on, you understand what your capabilities are, and you can actually execute on those.
Yeah.
So
I guess like one thing I was just thinking about as you were talking with the whole burnout, what would your definition of burnout be? Because there's obviously a lot of people talk about burnout, but I feel like some people might not actually understand what burnout is.
Yeah, I suppose after a period of time, wherever that time frame might be, of working or training or putting your all into something, you reach a point where you haven't got the energy to carry on at the same consistency, and so you've like burnt out, so to say. That it could look like a range of different things. Maybe it impacts your health. Maybe it impacts other areas of your life that you put off to the side. Maybe it impacts your finances, your relationships, your physical training, your mental health. So because those start to decline, you start realizing it, and so you can't carry on because it's just not sustainable. Because those other areas are impacted. So, that would be my definition. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's I actually did a little Google before we jumped on for this one.
Oh, good on you.
It came up, Dr. Google telling me what's what. And it was quite interesting, and it's pretty much exactly what you just said. And burnout is a form of fatigue. So probably heard of adrenal fatigue or chronic fatigue. Those are kind of not ones that you can diagnose because of like certain symptoms. Like a lot of people say that chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue aren't real things because there's not enough science backing them. They're kind of like there's a type of science that isn't scientifically, like facts that aren't scientifically proven. I can't think of the name of them right now.
There's this whole there's this whole category of diseases called medically unexplained symptoms. But they're starting to realize that those type of diseases do exist, and they should be like diagnosed, with the science just hasn't quite caught up yet.
Yeah, so burnout is essentially another version of chronic fatigue or adrenal fatigue. And what they're saying is that burnout is actually the starting point. So that leads into these things like chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. Glandular fever is another thing that can come because you're so run down, like any sort of illness. So it's a high level of stress without the relief. So the human body is made of fight or flight, right? When we have a stress hormone, so we either fight it or we run. The way we live today, we're in a constant state of stress. So people have lost how to relax. Like I personally struggle to relax. I kind of sitting there and I'm like, I shouldn't be sitting here doing nothing. Like there's something I could be doing with my day. I shouldn't. And then that's why I think TV is so popular, because it takes your brain away from what's actually happening. But if you just sat and relaxed and just kind of went in your own head, all the voices in your head, I'm sure you have voices in your head. I definitely get them when I'm alone and, thinking about the wide world. A lot of people get it when they try to sleep. All the little voices start talking and, oh, you should have done this, or you could be doing this, or ready, and it just carries on. And then so what people do is they listen to these voices and they keep going, and they don't give themselves a break. And then next minute they're burning out. So it's the quite a lot of people talk about the boom and bust effect. So you go out too hot, you don't give yourself enough time to adapt to the new workload, and then you bust. So you boom and then bust. So a lot of doctors, when people are recovering, doctors, physios, they talk about the boom and bust effect, because they've just recovered, they're finally clear to exercise again, and they go out too hot, and then they re-injure themselves or do another injury because their body isn't quite ready to do the activity what they've done. And it's the same thing with the stress in your body. Like if you're just recovering from being sick, you could use COVID as an example, long COVID. So you've just had COVID-19, you've had your week of 7 days of being sick, and then you come out and you go for a massive run. Your heart is not ready yet for that amount of effort. And that's how COVID-19 develops, long COVID develops, because you've gone out way too hot too soon and you've done the whole boom and bust. So burnout is essentially a version of that. You've gone too hot for too long and your body's gone, nah, sit the fuck down.
Yeah. It's interesting what you're saying about how we're always thinking about something in the back of our mind. We're definitely in an overstimulated world. We see advertisements everywhere. We've always got a task list to do. Life can be stressful for a lot of people. I guess, like, as you go through life, you want to either increase your capacity for doing stuff, or take things off your mind, or take tasks off, so that then you're not overly stressed, right? That's the two options you sort of can go down. So what would you recommend to people that say, I'm really stressed, I've got a never-ending job list to do? What would your advice be to them?
I reckon there's three things that you can do. Option one, walk away. If you've got the ability to walk away, then that's a great option. If it's something that you can do. Like, for example, if you're in a job that's completely stressing you out and you've got options to go somewhere else, or like the to-do list is never ending and you feel like you're never getting away from work, and you've got options to go to another job that'll be less stressful in your life and create a better lifestyle, do it. That option quite often isn't an option for people. So, for example, for me, running a gym, I can't just walk away from my investment. The last 3 years of my life, I've spent grinding to get my gym to a point where it's at, and I'm going to be spending the next 10 years of my life grinding to make sure that it keeps succeeding, because it's my lifestyle now. So I've got two options really for my gym. One is, so this is option two for people if they don't have option one, is creating timelines of how long you can work like this for. So let's say you're in a position where you've got an exam coming up, or you've just started a new job and it's really hectic. You're trying to learn everything, or you've got a tournament for a sports team or something like that, where you've got to really push to be able to get to where you want to go. That you can give it a timeline. So you can say, right, I've got to just keep going 4 more weeks. I'm going to listen to my body. If I need to have a day off here and there, I can do that. But I've got my timeline. I'm going to push towards that goal. And usually there's a down period. So, for example, if you're building up to an event, you're going to have a deload week, or you're going to have a couple of days before the tournament where you let your body refresh so you can hit it and be the best in the best performance peak. So when it came to exams and stuff like that, when I was in uni, I actually did that. I would study really hard, try and get it out of the way, and then the day or two before, I would reduce the amount. So I was the opposite of a crammer. I'd cram early, and then I'd relax before the exam, because I'm terrible at exams. I hate them. I can't retain information in my head. I'm very good at picking things up on the go. And if I've got an open book test, I'll smash it because I can actually find the information I want to find, but I can't retain lots of information in my head. So the way I would do it is I would have to set up procedures that would help me remember what I was doing. And I never really got great results in exams because of that. But I kind of went into a degree where it was more practical than it was book reviews. And I think option 3, if this is, say, you've got a kid, you're a mother, there's not really an opportunity to be like, oh, well, we're going to have a timeline. When they're 1, everything's going to relax. Like, I think for the next 18 years of your life, you're going to be a pretty hectic life. So you've got to reach out for help. Find people to help you get through the workload that you've got. So if you're a stay-at-home mum and you're getting overloaded by the amount of work you have to do for all your kids, could be a case of talking to your partner if they're still around, or it could be talking to your the grandparents, or talking to friends and just say, look, I'm really struggling. I need help. Is there anything you can do to help me get through this? Because I'm burning out and it's not healthy for anybody. So I think the third option is reaching out for help and reaching out for help is always a good option, no matter where you are in your stage of life. But if you don't have the option to give up or walk away or have a timeline, you've got to talk to people and say, I need help. How can you help me? And most people are willing to help. Some people won't be, and that's okay. They're probably in with their own stresses and stuff, but don't feel bad about reaching out to people and trying to get some help off the ground. So like, with the business, if you think about a business point of view, I'm the co-owner of the business with Tim. We don't want to be doing all the work all the time. So that's why we hire people. We're essentially asking for help. We're paying them for that service, because obviously you're going to pay people to do work, and they take on the workload so we can focus on other parts of the business. So my job is to grow the business, not keep the business alive. I pay people and hire people to do the work that keeps the business running. So they're probably the most important people in the business, because they're making sure that the business is doing its daily tasks, like the cleaning, the admin work, the basic sales. They're really important to have, but you're able to train people into that position. If I was trying to do all that, I wouldn't be sleeping. So those are essentially the 3 things I think that you can do if you're facing burnout. Nice and short, right?
Nice. Yeah, that's the one. 3 things. So you said either drop the task, you said make a timeline, and ask for help. Nice and simple. It's really important points I think you brought up. It's I feel like when you're like quite early stage in your professional life, it's a bit of a jungle, right? You've got to navigate all these things, employers, or if you want to jump into entrepreneurship. You've got to navigate your way in terms of finding out the mechanics of the business, and you build a business plan and you hire a bunch of people. It's never a straight road, but you're finding your feet, and then as you get a little later in your journey, you figure out a natural rhythm for yourself, and a lot of that testing and adjusting. You need to go through a few boom and bust phases in terms of figuring out what works for you best. And once you get on that natural rhythm and you figure out what works best for you, you can actually start really getting a grapple on things. And it's always there's always a little bit of testing and adjusting. Things change. You get different people in your life. You start new projects. You want to learn new skills. There's always things to change and adjust.
Yeah. So what do you do now that you've gone through it a couple of times when you face burnout? Like, what are your kind of coping mechanisms, I guess?
So unlike you, I'm quite a last minute person. I'm like a crammer. And so I sort of, it's quite bad really, but I view things in the opposite way to you, which isn't always healthy at the best of times. But like leading up to an exam, I'll say, okay, so I've got this like 3-month window. Okay, I'll try to do foundational stuff initially, like the big rocks, get those like chunky ideas in my head, the bare basics. And like later down the line, I'll try and focus on the details, and then I'll do practice exams or what have you. But my productivity increases exponentially the closer you get to the exam. And this is really bad, but the night before I'll be on the grind hard. Like I'll be hitting the books, I'll be like learning the stuff, I'll be writing notes, papers everywhere, just getting as much as I can into my head. And then I sit the exam, and afterwards, like I just won't talk about it. It'll be like the next day, if I've got another exam, then I'll power through. If I don't have another exam, then I'll like sleep for 12 hours and then hit the next task, so I sort of go through these like real intense moments. It works for me when I'm isolated, in terms of like it only impacts myself. So for exams, that's just my learning style, and no one else gets stressed out about, because it's my own little world. But when it comes to like the professional world, where other people are relying on you to do tasks, that's a little bit different. So I try and clear the big tasks once a week, and then I like try and do little tasks throughout the week. But again, it's always a constant battle for me, because I've got a lot on my plate generally. So yeah, it's always felt like I've always got stuff to do, but I like it that way. That's just how I roll. If I've got nothing to do, then that's when I'm a bit sad bickies, So it's a constant struggle. I've always got a few plates spinning, and so just need to keep them going.
Yeah, I think ever since I've met you, you've always had at least 3 projects on the go. It's like, so I'm doing this, but then I've also got this like little side project, and I've also got this little side hustle, and then I've also and then I was thinking I might go travel, and then I'm going to come back here, and then and you're just like everything. And I've learned to just not be surprised with you with what you do. Like I'm just like, oh yeah, that's just Jason. But I think both you and I are similar in the fact that we love to be busy. We've both got very busy brains. We're both very high achievers. Like we don't settle for mediocre. We're constantly stepping to the next stage. And if there's something where that can also be a bad thing at times, because I don't like to do things that I'm mediocre at either. I learn and I study, like I work really hard at not being mediocre at it, or I just don't do it. I've got
Yeah,
like
yeah.
two sides.
I'm a bit different. Like I try and see something big, and I know I haven't got the skills yet, but in order to get the skills, I need to do that big thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm happy to get them along the way. So I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to
Yeah.
stuff. I'll just like give things a go, and if it looks rubbish, then it's a learning curve, and hopefully the next iteration will be like a bit better and a bit better, and I sort of build on that. And so that gives me a little bit of peace of mind, because I find I don't get stressed out if something isn't great. Now, there are times where it does need to be right, and I try and emphasize when it does. In my head, I think of like the impact that could have if it was wrong. So that's stuff like, for example, medicine. You don't want to get that wrong. People can die, right? So that's the type of stuff where you've got to know your stuff first, and then you don't want to make mistakes down the line, right? But if I'm testing a certain system in business, and I'm not sure if it will work, like it's there's a bit of test, there's a bit of wiggle room. The worst that will happen is that it may not make money in that iteration, or it may not give the desired result, but then you improve that system, and it improves down the line. So it's that sort of testing and adjusting for that long-term gain that I'm after. But no, we've both been exceptionally busy people, and we strive for big stuff, which is why I really enjoy talking to you and hanging out with you. And we've had our laughs along the line. So no, it's good. It's good to be that way. Just a couple. Yeah.
And I think that actually helps with the overall stress of life, as if you can have a bit of fun with it. So that going back to that kind of burnout topic, if you're able to kind of take the piss a little bit, have a bit of fun, let your hair down once in a while, and just enjoy the little things, it takes away from that burnout happening. So I know, like one of our team, they're a very, very hard worker, but every now and then on a Saturday, they just have to go large and let everything out. And for some reason, they don't seem to get an after effect of going large. Like they're back to it Monday morning, no stress. Like, whereas me, if I go large on a Saturday, I'm out until Wednesday. So I've learned that letting my hair down has to be, I've got nothing planned for the next week in that scenario. But what I've found really helpful to enjoy the little things is either hanging out with mates who are a similar mind frame to me. So hanging out with you is always super easy. It's not stressful. It's just, we just bounce off each other. There's none of those like awkward silences. I don't think there's ever silence with me and you.
Especially when we're face to face, not online.
But I've got other friends who are more introverted, and they're quite happy for silence. And then I can just sit there, because I don't like to be alone, but I do sometimes enjoy quiet. So depending on what I need, and I'm starting to learn more and more what I need, and I'm actually starting to condense my surroundings so that I can, and it's all very selfish, like I literally do everything for what's going to better me, because I feel like if I can be my best self, then I'm going to be able to help other people, because my end goal is to help people. Like I wouldn't have started a gym if I didn't want to help people. I was making plenty of money as just a personal trainer, but I wasn't helping enough people. And so then I was like, right, I'll start a gym. And it's been a case of trying to put yourself first so you can put other people first. As weird as that sounds. It's kind of like the oxygen mask on the plane. You put your oxygen mask on, then you put it on your kid.
Yeah. If you're burnt out, you can't help other people, because you've got to focus on yourself first. Whenever I've had burnout, or no, let's take a step back. You can sort of tell when you're not going on the wrong path, or you're not on the right path, like before you completely crash and burn, right? There's a little voice inside your head that says, okay, things aren't quite adding up. It doesn't just happen. There's normally a gradual increase of workload. And I found whenever there's tasks on my plate that I don't want to get done, there's been two sort of main variants of those. So there's been the one that I don't agree with the end goal that this might help achieve. So that I was recently asked if I wanted to be involved in a startup, and I initially said yes, and it was going to be like, I'm not involved in the startup anymore, but it would have made a bit of coin. It would have made some dollars, right? And it was interesting in terms of the skills that I would have learned, but the end goal or the impact that it would have made on people, it wasn't up my alley. Not to say they were doing bad things, but it didn't align directly with where the impact I wanted to make was. So because of that, I said, I'll help part-time. I'll do like little bits and pieces. But other things took priority in my life, the things that actually directly lined up with my values. And so I pushed that one off to the side because other things were more important to me. And so in the end, I had a chat to them and I said, look, guys, sorry to mess you around, but I think I'll take a step back from this one. One, because I was too busy, but two, because it wasn't in line with what I wanted to achieve, So yeah, it was, and I wish them well. They wished me well. They totally understood. We're both really good people, or all of the people involved were really cool, but that's just nature of the beast. So when I don't want to do things, that could be one of the reasons, because it's not in line with what I really want to do long term. So, and the second piece of like not doing something that's on a task list to do is if I'm scared of the outcome. So there's always conversations that you've got to have with certain people. Maybe you've got to tell your boss that you want a pay rise, or you've got to tell someone that you're going to end a relationship, or there's always these things that they seem like these big moments in your head, and they could well be a big moment, but you always catastrophize in your head the worst possible outcome rather than what actually might happen. You go to that dark place, that what's the worst possible thing that could happen, and you delay and you delay and delay it, and by delaying it only gets worse. So generally when I've had these moments, I've found that if you do them straight up before they get big, then it's a lot easier to have these conversations. And I'm not perfect at this sort of thing. Naturally, especially in the past, I've been a very agreeable person. So these conversations previously have been quite hard to have. I've gotten better with age, and it's easier to have these conversations now because I know the long-term effect it has if you don't have these conversations. But always try and think of it from their perspective, and always try and put your best foot forward, and understand that they're good people too. So yeah, they're the two kinds of things when I've been stressed about tasks, and how I've generally tried to go about doing them. They've either come from the task itself is really hard, in which case you've got to think of the long-term impact by having that conversation or doing that thing. And normally, if it lines up with your values, then it's a lot easier to have those conversations or make those decisions or do those tasks. And once it's off your plate, it's a huge relief, right? And then the other thing is if something just doesn't align with what you're trying to do long term. And normally, like you said before, they're the kinds of things that you want to take off your plate, push off, say, no, it's not for me at the moment. And so, you push on and carry on with other things that are more valuable in your life.
Yeah, that makes it makes a lot of sense that something that seems small could actually be what pushes you over the line. Because you don't think of it as that big a deal. And a lot of people who think something is not a big a deal, it's actually a really big deal for them. So that conversation of, asking for someone to increase your pay, or, you've got to end a relationship, the more you hold off on that decision, the more stress that's going to create in your life. And you're just going to keep snowballing into more and more problems. And then something that's super insignificant, like, I don't know, someone cuts you off while you're driving, or somebody says, I can't come to your party, or someone leaves a dish out when you've just cleaned the kitchen, that makes you explode. And you just go into a massive ball. And it's a classic, especially New Zealanders, I find. We're very good at internalizing our problems. And I think that's why that ad stood out to so many people. I've been internalizing a really complicated situation in my head. Like, everyone kind of related to that, because we all do it. We internalize so much and we don't project what our issues are. And it just builds and builds and builds. And it all starts at one little thing. And it could be you're not happy in your relationship, or you want a pay rise, but you don't know how to ask for it. And then every little thing after that, you've got less patience for. And that's a massive sign of burnout, is that you're not dealing with emotions as well as you normally would. So the three ways I know I've got burnout issues: one, I get head colds, like not really sick, I just get a little bit of a head cold. Quite often, especially like in a change of season, if I'm really healthy and I'm smashing it and I'm not overly stressed, my body doesn't have any issues. But if I'm stressed and I'm pushing myself, I get a bit of a head cold, and it's just a little sniffle, a little bit. And like, especially at this time of life with COVID going around, it kind of freaks you out. You're, oh my God, I've got COVID. Oh my God. So you're constantly doing rank tests and stuff. It's very annoying. So that's one thing that I notice, like, if I'm starting to get burnt out. Two, I'm overly emotional. I take things to heart, or I overthink the situation. If someone says a very flippant, like, I don't know, if someone disagrees with me or tells me that they don't think my idea is very good, it hurts a lot more than if I'm in a good state of mind and I'm not overly burnt out, because I'm an ideas person. I throw shit out all the time. And I'm like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And probably 1 out of 50 is a good idea. But that's why I surround myself with people who are quite logical thinkers. And they go, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I don't know what the hell you were thinking with that idea. And so, but if I'm in a burnout zone, when they say that and they're like, no, that's not a good idea, it hurts personally. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense, because I know that all my ideas aren't going to be good. And I know that they're not trying to offend me, but it still gets close to home. So yeah, you've got this easily getting sick. I've got the overly emotional. And then when I really know it's bad is when I just want to like give up, like I'm done. And I'm like, I just need to go home. I want to eat all the food in sight. I want to drink all the whiskey. And that's when I know that I'm really, really burnt out. And that's a case of, okay, something needs to change. If I'm at that point where I'm like, I don't want to get up in the morning, I don't want to carry on doing what I'm doing. And then I'm like, right, I need to talk to somebody. I need to figure it out. And usually my go-to is Bex, because we share we share everything. Some people don't have that relationship, but you need to find someone that you can share it with. And if it's something that I can't quite burden with Bex, or I've already talked to her about it and it hasn't quite been solved, then I'll talk to other people. Sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's a random person that I've never really met before, and it doesn't matter what they think. And I can just throw it out there and be like, oh, yeah, this is what I'm going through. And usually after talking about it, they don't come up with anything that helps me. I come up with it my own way. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't think of that. I need to do this. So figuring out what your burnout symptoms are and what's leading you down that road can be really helpful. But sometimes you won't know, like won't be able to figure it out unless you go through the process.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. We've talked about, like, I guess when we're in bust mode, right?
Yeah.
And when we're at the bottom of the cliff and ambulance needs to come along, paramedics scoop us off the ground and chuck us in the ambulance, get us to hospital. Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum. Let's go positive for a bit.
Yeah.
How do you stay on a real good buzz where everything's just clicking, you're real productive, you're like in this mode where like you can get everything done and like you're dancing to work each day and you're hitting the ground like full pace, full noise, and everything just like is turning out right?
You know what's really weird is it's really hard to actually figure that out, because when you're in that stride, it's like being in the zone. You just do it. You like, I can't really like pinpoint what it is, but when I'm in that zone, I'm just going. Like I'm just, and they talk about it as for athletes, they call it flow state, where you've taught yourself all the basics and you just fall into a pattern. Like the top sports players, when they play their best games, they don't remember the game. They just finish the game and they're like, what just happened? And
it's anything
so it can be quite hard
skill based. So it's for academics, it's for anyone like chess masters, that like it goes into all realms as well.
Yeah. And I think it happens when I'm in a good zone for like anything in my life, as I just go into that flow state and everything just starts going bang, 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 bang. And if I think about it, which I've never thought about before, and literally this question now is the first time I'm thinking about this. So brilliant question. Would be, I think it would be positivity, not in like that whole, you gotta be positive all the time, like think positive and everything will go right. It's more like celebrating. Like I'm a big celebrator. Like I love success and I love to, like, if I get something right, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. Like, if you've ever seen my lifting videos that I do, if I get a PB, I'm like, whoa, let's go. Like I get real pumped up. And if I have a failure, I'm the opposite. I do like a little tantrum. But I'm a very emotive person, and I think if I keep riding on that, and if I surround myself with people who are jumping on that success, I'm like, boom, we hit this goal, and everyone's like, yeah, let's go, like let's keep it going, and we're all ready for the potential of it not going right. But I've got my to-do lists. I'm checking them off. I'm pushing those endorphins. So I think it's keeping the endorphins and like the dopamine, two very important like hormones that we have in our body, and finding those triggers. And if I can keep those triggers rolling, then it makes it like a lot easier to stay in that flow state and that success of that. Like I'm not burning out. Like the fire is lit. Yeah. What would yours be?
There's got to be adequate challenge, but I've got to have the matching skill to be able to like go through that challenge. If the challenge isn't there, then you're bored, and if the skill isn't there, then you're stressed out, right? So there's a fine balance between the two. It's got to be something that like I'm interested in or aligns with the long-term goals, so that then you can put in the hours, you can put in the grind, and you've got to have like little wins along the way in order to keep the momentum up, like you say, get that little dopamine hit, and you've got to see your own personal growth in there, and there's something nice about like being challenged adequately, so that then you can push on. You also need a direction to go in, so you can't just be like winning things in like little pockets and not really know where you're going. If there's like a North Star and you're having like quick wins along the way to get you closer to that North Star, I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, so a good way to explain that would be micro and macro goals. Like, obviously micro means small, macro means large. So I've always got my overall goal. This is where I want to get to, but I create micro goals along the way. And I think that's exactly what you just said. Like, you like to have those little ones along the way. And so anybody you talk to that's got like a successful business seems to have those little stepping stones that they're trying to hit each time, and they create those wins themselves. It's and it can be literally anything in your life. If you're like watching this podcast because you want to improve your sporting, create little mini goals for your sports. If you're wanting to exceed yourself in your career, same thing. Little micro goals and creating a plan to get to where you want to go to. It's all great and well saying, oh, I want a pay rise, but how do you go about getting that pay rise? Like you can talk to your management and you can say, right, this is where I want to be in 12 months. How do we get me there? Let's put a plan in place to create that. And then all of a sudden the stress of, I think I'm worth this much money, but they're not paying me. And what if they say no, turns into a plan. And it's okay, I want to get to this point. I know the business has already said, we can't currently pay you this. So it's a case of saying, well, how do we get me here? And if we can't, maybe it's my time to find another job. And no, unless you've got a real arsehole of a boss, is going to look at that and go, oh, no, you're rude. If I had someone come to me and say that, I'd be like, man, you've got drive. And you're someone I want to hold on to in the business because you're willing to do the work to get to where you want to go to. If someone said to me, I want to be earning this much money by the time I turn whatever age, I'll be like, okay, well, let's make a plan. Let's figure out how we can get you there and how we can afford to make sure that we can get you to that position, because I'm not going to let that drive go to waste and have someone else pick that person up. And it's just about putting yourself out there, I guess, to make that grind happen.
I feel like that's where the fun starts, right? So you have this macro goal, this pie in the sky thinking, right? And it might take 10 or 20 years to get there, right? But there's many roads to Rome, and you can actually, like once you start planning it all out, you can decide which is the best road that suits you, right? And then once you have a plan in place, and the plan will change over time, it's not set in stone, but once you have a plan in place, then like the fun actually starts, because once you start going on that course, you notice that there's normally other advantages out there by like grinding it out. You get other opportunities, you learn new skills, you meet fantastic people in that space. There's so like, but I find a lot of people, once they start figuring out the work that's needed to get to that macro goal, they shy off it, or they think it's too much. And sometimes it is. Like I don't judge anyone, but I think there's a lot to be gained by just giving it a go. You never quite know where you'll land if you don't give it a go.
And going back to what you said about whether some people think it's too much work, and that is fundamentally down to the individual. So if you look at something and you go, this is my macro goal, you've got to decide how badly you want that macro goal. So if you want to become, let's use a really basic example of, you want to become a millionaire. Let's say that's your macro goal. It's a very generic sort of like concept. A lot of people have that as a pipe dream. I'd love to have $1 million, but only very few people will make that. And it's because the people who want to make it are willing to make the sacrifices to get there, right? So you've got to dig deep and really think, how much does this goal actually mean to me, and how hard am I willing to get there? So I guess on another side note, for a personal experience for me, I've always liked the idea of being really lean and really fit. I don't really care about being the biggest guy in the room, which surprises a few people because usually I can bulk quite easily. So to me, it's not that much of a challenge to be the biggest guy in the room, but to be lean, to be fit, to be able to do whatever I want to do. Like if someone says to me, I want to go to the Tongariro Crossing, I want to be able to just go do it. And so I set goals that are hard for me to achieve. So currently I'm working to be under 96 kilos so I can lift at the 96 weight class. Losing weight is not easy for me, and I've got to make a lot of sacrifices. So to be able to, one, stay under that weight, and two, get to that weight. And then three, still be able to lift enough weight to be able to get to the national level of Olympic lifting. So I've got my macro goal is getting to nationals in the 96 kg category, and then past there, hopefully get into an international level of lifting. And I'm not afraid to tell people that, because I know the chances of me actually getting there, lifting this later on in my 20s, is actually quite low. But I don't really care, because I like to prove people wrong. So if I get there, fantastic. If I don't, oh well, I tried. But I'm still willing to make the sacrifices to get to that point. So I have to do less running, which I really enjoy, but I'll still keep a little bit in there. I have to eat a much cleaner diet. I'm probably going to have to abstain from drinking alcohol, because that's one of the worst things for my weight. And all these little things that I do enjoy, I enjoy winning more, and I enjoy achieving my goals more. So it's that long-term goal is what I really want. I've created micro goals to get there, and I'm willing to make the sacrifices. So if you're wanting to do something, you've got to sit back and go, okay, how badly do I want it? Am I willing to potentially push to a almost level of burnout? What are the symptoms that are going to stop me from burning out, so I don't screw it up and end up having to recover? So my big thing would be, a burnout for a sports person is injury or sickness. Those are the two things that can stop you from succeeding in sport. So how can you train smart enough that you're not going to get injured or get sick? So it comes down to diet, it comes down to mobility, it comes down to rest days, actually stopping for a day or two to let your body recover, because you make the most amount of gains when you're recovering. So if you're really wanting to get somewhere and you want to make it happen, and you want to feel that, like that burn side that we're talking about, like you're burning it, you've got that fire lit, you're smashing everything, you've got to make sacrifices, and you've got to decide, where is your goal big enough, or is it the right one for you? Because everyone's person.
Sure. You said a few interesting things that I want to touch on. So first of all, those pie in the sky moments, or those goals. Like you gave the example of $1 million, right? A lot of people hear $1 million and they think, oh, okay, like that would be a nice position to be in. And I agree with them. And a lot of people, they think it's out of my reach. That's where they stop. It's too big to obtain. But if you actually crunch down, like the reason I picked $1 million from your examples is because it's a very tangible and objective goal. It's very easy. It's very measurable. So if you break it down and you measure out, okay, so I might be in my 20s or 30s. How long would it take to accrue that sort of wealth? How long at my current paycheck? And you do the math, and you may not land where you want, and then you go, okay, so if it will take me 30 years to get to $1 million, how can I shorten that time horizon? Could I increase my paycheck? Could I start a business? Could I gain extra income? Could I work another job, a second job? Like obviously you've got to balance this with other things in your life, but once you start thinking of like lots of different options, then it opens up the world of possibilities. And then you come up with a bit of a game plan, and you try it for 6 months, see if the game plan actually works. If it doesn't, test and adjust. Make sure that you change the plan and see if you can try something else. Maybe you tried to start a business, but you didn't have the business now to actually execute on it. So maybe you should try find a new job that has a bit better pay, but now you've got like a few more skills because you tried to start a business and you've actually learned some things along the way. So these little stepping stones might be a blessing in disguise, even though it didn't work out the first time. So that's the first thing. The other thing you said is that like the goal is pulling you towards like you don't mind if you fail. You just want to give it a shot. you know. And I think that's why we vibe so much, because that's half the fun in our minds, you know, giving a go and seeing where we land. We often have like these huge goals that are definitely beyond our capabilities currently, but then like 20 years down the line they'll seem much more obtainable, you know. So that's really exciting. And then there was a third thing, but it's escaped my mind. But you're on to a good thing, Mr. Glover.
Thank you.
Spitting some knowledge. But
I definitely think that not being afraid to fail is a huge one. Like, every time I've failed at something, I've learned something. Like, I could look back at my radio career and be like, I was a failure. I never quite made the goal that I wanted to get to. But if I hadn't failed in radio, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now. Like, if I hadn't decided that actually this is too hard for how much I want to put in the work, like I was going to have to be at the bottom of the barrel for years and years if I wanted to get to where I wanted to get to, and I wasn't enjoying myself, and it wasn't worth the grind. Like, I didn't want to do it anymore, and I was like, actually, you know what? I want to do something that really gets me excited to wake up in the morning. And I found that, like, there are weeks and there's even months where I'm like, why the hell am I still doing this? But overall, I'm happier, and I'm in a place where I think I'm on the right track to where I want to be. And it's exciting. Like, I'm excited to see where I am in 3 years' time. Do I know if it's going to work or not? Hell no. Will I have some massive failures along the way? Yes, I will. But every time I fail, I get better because I figure out what it was. And I think you're saying.
Yeah. The measure I have in my head is, if I told myself 10 years ago what I've achieved now, would I be surprised and amazed? Would I amaze my younger self? And generally the answer has been like pretty good. Then I think that to myself with my future goals, what do I want to be in 10 years time? And so that's sort of how I dictate my goals and aspirations. I remember the third thing that you said really struck a chord with me. So I'm going to just hit it on the head while it's still in my mind. So you mentioned that you're going for Olympic weightlifting, and you're in your late 20s, and it's a real big goal, and people have told you that like you won't get there, right? I think that's like such a trigger in my mind that that sparks me up. If someone says I can't do something, I'm like, okay, I'll prove you wrong. Let's go. Like I like a few years ago, it would have been now, I got offered to join this company. I had no web development experience, but I went in and they saw a certain something in me and said they'll train me up and offer me a job. And I went home and I told Mum, I was like, Mum, I just got offered this role, and I know I've got other things on my plate, but I'm considering it. And she's like, Jace, you've never done anything like this. You like, Mum always supports me. I'll put this disclaimer out there. She's just being a sounding board. She said, Jace, what are you doing? Like, you've never been interested in this sort of thing. And I didn't take up the job in the end because I had other things on my plate. But I reckon like that little like thing inside my mind that if someone told me like, oh, like you've never done something like this, like you might not have the skills, that's when I actually jumped into it and thought, okay, like down the line I'd love to learn the skill, because like I just want to be able to say that I can. So, and it's led to other opportunities, so it's real interesting how people take negative feedback. Some people love it and some people hate it. And I think you and me both, we quite enjoy it. We're like, okay, you think I can't do it? Let's see if I can, you know. But some people, they break down. They think, oh, this person might be right. But just I don't know how to teach people like to like take it as it comes and take it on board. But I think you will be told at certain points of your life that you can't do something. It's just the nature of who we are and what we do through life. But
I think it's up to the people to choose. They've got to choose not to let people like they have to be like, nah, I don't want people to like be right. I want to prove people wrong. And that can be a real mindset change. And I think when people finally get to that point, like if someone said, oh, this person's always lazy or this person will never get a good job, that to me would be the perfect opportunity for me to go, right, I'm going to prove this person wrong. I'm going to go get that. I'm going to do it just to be that person that's proved people wrong. And I've been doing it since I was younger. And I just love that feeling of like achieving something and knowing that somewhere in the background being going, oh shit, I don't think he'd be able to do that. And I'm like, boom, let's go. Come on. And it's sometimes detrimental because I push too hard to try and prove people wrong and like achieve something. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that, you know, boom and bust, like when is it time to boom and when is it time to pull back and let myself create the foundation. It's kind of like how you talked about with your studying. You create the foundation first and then you go hard.
You go through seasons in your life, you know, and hopefully you set up success in the future by going through the right seasons. I think also there's this little piece that goes along with this goal setting theme, and that's like if you say you want to be a CEO at a top company, whatever, like that's just a general goal, then if you believe intrinsically that you're a business person or you've got a business mind, then you've got to think, okay, what would a business person do in this situation, you know, and put that hat on. If you want to go to the Olympics, you've got to put on the hat of what would an athlete do in this situation, and it's got to be like the core of your being, right? So you've got to always be thinking, what would this person do? If you want to be an academic, what would an academic do? They'd probably go up and read on the topic that they want expertise on. So you've got to do the thing that that person would do or that character would do. If that's where you want to end up in 10 years down the line, you've got to act like that person would act. And so there's plenty of people that have obtained the goals that you want to obtain in the past. Generally, goals are pretty generic. They're like professional, they're sporting, they're financial. If you want to like obtain those goals, then there's other people who have done it too, and you've got to think, okay, they probably didn't just end up at that success. What did they do to get there?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So we hit on a lot of topics there, Dev. Any final thoughts?
I think the main part is if you're struggling with burnout or you think you might be struggling with burnout, one, figure out what your like trigger points are. Two, break down whether like this is like in a timeline and can you push through it, or are you needing to have a break? Sometimes it is okay to have a break. Sometimes you've got to push and you've got to carry on.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, there's a lot in there. Burn on or burn out. You know, we all go through our seasons. We all go about our life in the best way we can. Try not to burn out. Get into that flow state and burn on. That's all from us for today. If you have any topics that you want us to hit, comment below, because we'd love to answer some questions or hit some topics that you're interested in, and we'll jump on the live next time. But that's all from us for now. Awesome. Peace.